Hey y'all, and yes, we have another something equally delicious as our previous videos, and it's very simple. It is pepper steak. Real easy, got to do it. So it's onions, bell peppers, oyster sauce, soy sauce, some beef bouillon, and brown sugar. What you do not see is the onion and cornstarch. So here's our steak. I've gotten some steak from the store. It's already cut in strips, but they weren't all separated. So what I'm doing here, I just finished washing them in some vinegar and water, and I'm just letting the excess water just drain from them. And while that's happening, I decided to go through it and just check and see what pieces were still kind of sort of still together. And I'm just taking my knife and just ripping them apart and separating them and just going through it bit by bit to make sure that that's exactly what I want. So it's very easy. You can go ahead and you can do this yourself. You can even do it with other pieces. So here it is. I have my kitchen shears, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut those long strips a little bit shorter. And of course, this is going to increase the quantity altogether and giving you a little bit more of the steak than you had initially. All right, so I'm just going to go through, cut these strips, and make sure I set them aside for them to drain a little bit more before we move on to the rest of this recipe. And there is a long one. I think that one I cut into 4 pieces. That's how long that one was. And so we're just going to go ahead and finish this up, and then we're going to get into the video. In the pan, I have the steak that's already been drained of the excess water, and I'm adding some brown sugar. Now, brown sugar is going to add that level of sweetness, but it's not going to be overly sweet. So that's about 2 teaspoons of brown sugar. What I'm adding there is my cornstarch, just to go ahead and thicken it a little bit. And it's a very important ingredient in doing your pepper steak. And there is about a teaspoon of honey that I just added there, and that honey is going to add another level of sweetness. But again, it isn't something that you're going to be like, that's a little bit too sweet. No. So that's about a tablespoon of beef bouillon. I have it in a powder form. If you have it in the paste, you can go ahead and use that. Or if you want to still go ahead and use your chicken bouillon, you can go ahead and use that. I'm just adding a sprinkle of black pepper for this meal, and that's about it. I'm not adding any salt. So right there, that's about a tablespoon of soy sauce, low sodium soy sauce, and we're just going to go ahead and use the best tools in the kitchen, our hands, and just get this combined and set it aside. Here is my veggies. So with my veggies, I've got my red and my green bell peppers. Now normally you'll only get the pepper steak with your green bell peppers and some onion, but I said I wanted a little bit more pop of color, so I just added the red bell peppers in there, and we're just gonna do a rough chop. It doesn't have to be pretty. You just want them in some big chunky pieces, and it doesn't have to be uniformed either. Just cut them up however you like them, but make sure that they're good and chunky for your dish. This dish actually, which is just the pepper steak. All right, and you can set those aside. Here's the onion. So I had a half an onion, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut that down the middle for that wedge, and then I'm just going to do these in 4 separate cuts. So there's about 3 cuts I made there, but it was equaling 4 sections. So onions are layered, right? So all I'm going to do, rest the knife aside, and just go ahead and just separate each layer. And so that's going to give me all the onions I need. So in this bowl, I have my oyster sauce. And oyster sauce has a lot of salt. So right there, I added about 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce, and with our soy sauce, we're going to add 5 tablespoons. I know, gasp. It sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. And because that's low sodium, everything balances out. So you got your sweet, your savory, and your salty in the pepper steak. So right there again is my beef bouillon. And that's exactly 1 tablespoon of beef bouillon in the powder that I added there. And of course, we're not finished yet. We still got more stuff to add to this. So there's our cornstarch. Again, it's still a crucial ingredient for this dish. And we're just going to go ahead and add this. And I'm adding this, trying to work out all the lumps, making sure it's completely smooth. And then I realized, like, girl, what are you doing? This is not the one for it. You want to get that good old whisk in there, and that's going to work those lumps right on out and give you a smooth sauce, the one that you want, the one that you desire. All right, so we've got our skillet that's heating up. I use grapeseed oil, and I think I've mentioned this before. I prefer grapeseed oil. It does not have the taste. It does not have that heavy synthetic oil taste or smell. So it's really good and it's healthy. Okay, so we're just adding our steak that we had marinating while we cut up those veggies and got the sauce together. And I wanted to just make sure I add all of them and put them in a single layer in the pan so it all gets brown evenly. And we're just gonna set it aside and let it cook. Don't do too much moving up or down of the steak. Just let it do what it do, okay? And we're just gonna go ahead and let it cook in one even layer. You can flip it halfway through. Of course, it's your steak. Okay, so here it is, another pan. We're adding some more of the grapeseed oil, but this time we got our veggies that we're going to be adding to this pan. And notice I didn't put too much oil because, again, I just prefer a less oily plate, right? So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to go and sweat these veggies down. And I'm adding my ground garlic, or my minced garlic rather, to the pan, and we're just going to let it sweat. I don't want them soft. I want them to still have a bite. So you just want to move them around. You don't want them to stay in a place too long. And just get coated with the oil and get that heat to them. And then we're going to just let the magic happen. So now they're exactly where I want it to be. I want my veggies to still have a little bite to it. And there goes the steak that we have already let it cook, and we're just adding it to this pan. And of course, when you add it to the pan, you just want everything to melt together. And I'm not adding the sauce just yet. I just want these to sweat together, let all of those flavors and everything just melt together and just come together real nicely for this pepper steak. When I tell you it's easy, it's easy. There goes that sauce. I'm adding the sauce, and of course I'm going to add a little bit of water a little bit later, about a cup to a cup and a half, and we're just going to let it do what it do in the pan. And when I tell you this is good, look at that. Just look at that. It smells amazing. I tasted the sauce. It was on point. When I tell you it was good. We had that with some white rice, and it was a meal just like that. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Bon appetit.